Hello, I'm Mark Forsyth and welcome to lesson number 8 on how to write English verse. As ever, if you haven't seen lessons 1 to 7, go back. This lesson won't make any sense without them. They are up on the Inky Fool blog and on YouTube on the Inky Fool video channel and going up on Instagram under Mark Forsyth author, all one word. Today we are actually going to do the Trochaic Substitution, which I've been promising for ages, and that's a complicated sounding term for something which is actually very simple. If you're writing in iams, so your line is going to tum, to tum, to tum, to tum, to tum, a Trochaic substitution is when you switch one of those iams for a trochee, so you switch to the tum for tumta, and you almost always do it on the first foot of the line. So rather than writing to tum, to tum, to tum, to tum, to tum, you write tumta, to tum, to tum, to tum, to tum. It's that simple. That's it. That's what Trochaic substitution is. Now is the winter of our discontent. Now takes the stress, then you have is the, both unstressed, and then winter of our discontent. And then you return to the normal pentameter. So it goes, now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the son of York. And it tends to just emphasize that first word and draw attention to the line. It's like, this is the big line. So you have the Ilas in Gaza at the mill with slaves, if you're Milton in Samson Agonistes, or John Donne, batter my heart, three-person God. It's a batter my heart, three-person God. It's the this is the big line, bells and trumpets kind of thing, and then you return from the variation. You can do two in a row, obviously, but that's a lot of bells and a lot of trumpets, and you have to be feeling particularly passionate about something. Wordsworth was very good at feeling passionate, so his lines upon Westminster Bridge, the first two lines both have Trochaic substitution on the first foot. So it goes, earth has not anything to show more fair, dull would he be of soul who could pass by, a sight so touching in its majesty, etc., etc. So it goes back on that third line, a sight so touching in its majesty. It generally draws attention to the line. Sometimes it's a little more subtle. A couple of lessons ago we were looking at to be or not to be, that is the question. And the feminine ending, you have there the extra unstressed syllable on the end. Well, the next line of that speech has a feminine ending and also has a Trochaic substitution on the first foot, because the word weather is stressed on the first syllable. It's not whether, it's weather. So it goes, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer. And then goes back to normal, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And then there's another Trochaic substitution, or to take arms against a sea of troubles. So he's switching between them, and that's one of the greatest speeches ever. You can also, of course, use it in a tetrameter. Byron did it in She Walks in Beauty. If you listen for the fourth line of the word meet, you will hear it. The poem goes, she walks in beauty like the night, of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Meet in her aspect and her eyes. There you are. You can, of course, switch any of the feet around. You could switch the second foot, but that will tend to just sound bad. It will tend to sound like a mistake. It will tend to sound like you don't know how to write a pentameter. And even if you say, but I did it deliberately, it still just sounds wrong, so why do it? You can carry it off. It has the odd effect of putting two stressed syllables together. So if you flip the second foot, for example, you get to tum, tum, to tum, to tum, to tum. And if you save that up for special occasions, maybe, but it's very hard to carry off. I'll give you one example of where it's carried off, and that's in Richard II, the Shakespeare play, and in the central speech of the whole play, where Richard realises that he's going to be deposed and he's going to be killed by Bolingbroke, and it's all gone horribly wrong, and this is the end, and this is the moment where he breaks. And at the central line of that central speech, the moment where his soul breaks in two, the rhythm breaks and you switch the second foot to a trochee. And even then, that's a kind of special occasion you're waiting for, and even then Shakespeare gives it a very, very long run-up of very regular pentameters before he pulls that trick out of his back pocket. So I'll recite you the speech with the run-up so you can see how it gets to it. Essentially, somebody's just told Richard that there may possibly be an army somewhere to help him. And Richard says, no matter where, of comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves and worms and epitaphs. Make dust our paper and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so, for what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our land, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth, which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings, how some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the kings they have deposed, etc., etc. Speech goes on, but you heard and noticed, I hope, that for God's sake, let us sit upon the ground. And that's the most famous line in the play. It's the central line of the play. It's the point where Richard's soul breaks in two, which is the kind of special occasion you can save it for, and Shakespeare can carry it off when he's at the top of his game. But I would say probably don't try this at home. Anyway, that's the end of today's lesson. If you want something to try at home, the exercise for today is that spring is here. It's rather lovely all over the Northern Hemisphere, as long as you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Are you? I don't know. Who are you? Who? Anyway, I was... So the challenge is to write a 4-line poem in iambs, pentameters or tetrameters, it doesn't matter. And on the 4th line, on the first foot of the 4th line, flip it to a trochee. And that's easy if you make the word something like blooming or growing or flowering or something, which is definitely a trochee. I knocked one off in a few minutes this morning. I was on my morning exercise walk down to Blackfriars Bridge through the silent city of London, and there's a pub called the Blackfriars, and there's a little patch of earth outside which is usually filled with crisp packets and criminal rats and things like that. And there are actually flowers growing in it. It was amazing. So my one went, if I can remember it. The city is as silent as can be, and silently the flowers bloom and grow. The leaves are spreading out from every tree, blooming beside the pub I used to know. There you are. Does not have to be good. Remember, it does not have to be good poetry. What we are doing is we are learning the rhythms so that then we will be able to write good poetry someday, we hope. Until then, that's the end of today's lesson. So I will be back very soon. Until then, remember, Trochaic Substitution. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. This is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know.